What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Ham Radio Crash Course. Welcome to Saturday. Today we're going to be talking about effective off-grid power for ham radio. What the heck am I talking about? Well, it just means you're going out in the park, whether you're doing it for funs and the POTAs or you're literally having an emergency situation and you're running off-grid. Grid down! Grid down. Well, today we're going to talk about some effective ways to still remain on the air with your amateur radio. And yes, the goal of this is going to be to show you how to figure this out on your own. It's not literally just going to be, I don't know, go buy like some panels and some batteries and stuff. I'm going to explain how you do it. And that's the point of today's video. That's right. Would like to give a big shout out to one ham radio tube. Just one ham radio tube who's in the chat. Shout out to the ham radio tube. All right, guys, enjoy the memes. And we'll get started shortly. All right, they asked the question, and I'll give you the answer. How many holes does a tube have? One. Think of a straw. How many holes are in a straw? One hole. That's the answer. One hole. All right, guys. Let's get started, shall we? I'm Josh, KI6NAZ. Thanks for clicking on the Ham Radio Crash Course. We're all having fun, but guess what? Today is a patron picks episode. All my wonderful patrons that helps me run all this craziness. The first week, normally, I devote to patron picks, the first weekend of the month. Well, this last month was pure insanity between going to San Francisco, doing the backpacking trip with Adam, K6ARK, who I saw in the house earlier in the comments, and then obviously having Huntsville this last weekend, just nonstop. So, patron picks have been shuffled all around, so we're going to have this one is the last weekend of the month, so thanks again to the patrons, appreciate you. And then oddly enough, you're thinking, oh, we're going to get another patrons picks next week. No, because I have the honor of bringing Ward Silver back next week. So really important live stream that we're going to be talking about. Radio propagation, how that all works. He has a new book out, so we're going to be talking about that. So then that makes the second week in September will be patron picks for September. So thank you to everybody who helped support the channel over on Patreon and the YouTube membership and all that stuff. If you'd like to help support, the links are in the description. I appreciate it. All right, so what is all this about? Well, I like to go outdoors. You all likely go outdoors as well. Oftentimes, when I'm running like QRP, I'll have a couple of hours in a battery or so that I can be off-grid, or maybe an internal battery on a radio. But if I'm doing an elongated POTA, or I'm staying a weekend, like a camp out, kind of like we did with Adam, right? I may want to start thinking about adding some kind of way to regenerate power. We're going to talk about three of the most nominal, modes of recovering power, if you will, because all radios require power, right? They need to be juiced by something, whether it's an internal battery or it's an external battery or sometimes both. We're going to talk about that too. You need to kind of have some way to keep it up and running. And so that's what this is all about. Hey, Bobby Warren, thank you so much for the super chat. Took your advice and sat for both the technician and general exams this morning. Passed both. Thanks for all the great content. Wow, thank you, and congratulations on passing your amateur radio license test. That's fantastic. All right, couple of things right off the dip here. And I am going to be, there is a section where we're going to try and do Q&A, but as always, if you're interested in this topic and continuing this discussion on, please join us over on the Discord. The link is in the description. I do an after chat where we answer ham radio questions. It doesn't have to be just about today's off-grid discussion and powering radios, but it could be just about anything. Hey, shout out to Ham Radio 2.0 with the 30 months as a general YouTube supporter. So that's my YouTube membership. 2.0 and I have a reciprocal thing going on. I'm a member of him. He's a member of me. So I appreciate you in there, bud. And I'm going to try and be on, I'll give a shout out to him too. I'm going to try and be on his live stream tomorrow. We're going to try and set up some Shari nodes, I believe, all-star nodes, right? But I've got a hike that I'm going on with the family, and unfortunately, the family's going to have to win out over your buddy, over you, Jason, but I'll do my best. And Andy Callie, also 30 months. Wow. Are we ever going to even get to the topic here? Of course we are. Here it comes. Oh, man, Zing Jr. 86 DM, hang out, because we're going to say hi to what he's doing, too. But before we get there, hamtactical.com for all your zinger of ham radio merch ideas. We got the funniest merches, like I've got to a Brie, the best antenna that you can get for a Baofeng. Everybody's blowing it up right now. Oh my god, 29 months, 30 months. Chrissy, what's up with how many? 21 months. Man, you guys are the best. Thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Another big shout out. We got a cool event coming up. This is going to be Friday the 13th, which happens to be in October 13th, Friday the 13th. Hellfest is coming. And we may live stream this. We have a really cool contest that's coming up, and it is all going to be on Feld Hell. So if you've not used the very cool digital mode, I think you can say it's a digital mode. It might be a facsimile mode. I'm not exactly sure what the right terminology is. Feld Hell. I will show you how to do it, and then we're going to operate in the contest. And yeah, it's going to be Hellfest. Friday the 13th, which is going to be October this year, which is the perfect month for this. So check out Hellfest. And yeah, I'll post that link in the live stream so you guys can check it out. Cool. All right. Now, a lot of what we're going to be talking about today as far as products, even though I'm not going to try and drive you to any one thing, with that said, here's a place you can find some of those items. If you go to Gigaparts, link is in the description, and you use the code Josh, you'll get 10% off. But I also have a non-affiliate thing with Palomar Engineers. If you use HRCC 73 at checkout, you get 10% off. That is a good deal as well. So links are in the description for a lot of that stuff, and go check that out, because again, I'm not telling you need that stuff. I'm going to show you what you need to do, but at the same time, there you go. If you don't want to go through all the work. All right. So what's the deal here? Effective off-grid power for ham radio, and no, I'm not going to make you look at a bunch of slides, I promise, but we do need to lay out some agendas and ideas here. So goals, right? We're going to cover this right up top. What's the goal? Well, that's going to be dependent on you, and we're going to talk about that. That could be a 100-watt radio, could be a QRP radio, could be a handheld, right? These are your goals. You're going to have to determine this. We're also going to be talking about, how long you're going to be in the field, a weekend, a week, forever, a van. All of these things are going to change what your goals are. Oh my God, it's exploding. Did I get everybody? Jody, thank you. 30 months, man, thank you. And Randall, 2 months. Thank you so much. And just to add to the craziness, the geekiest guy, I love that, new member. But Ham Radio 2.0 dropped where is it? Dropped 10 random gifted memberships. So thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. So that he just gave people a membership. So there you go. For the next month or so, you guys are going to get a pre-screen of the videos before they go live. So thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. The big thing, though, to start this all off is you may be looking at this as what are options, right? What are off-grid options? Well, they almost all consist of running off of batteries. So our journey must really and truly begin on the discussion of batterizes. Are they charged? How you charge them is one thing. That's the refilling. But the actual battery you decide upon is going to be dependent, or should be based off of which radio you're planning on using. And that is going to be where the first stop of our journey begins. I have some calculators that are in the description of this video, this live stream, that will likely help you with this next part of it. So you might have seen this before. This is the 4 States QRP Batterizes Life Estimator. And what are we doing with this? Well, the goal of this website is to give you an estimate of the size of battery that you need to be able to run your radio. And this is a hugely important thing to do, because if you don't do this, you're just grabbing any battery and you're going out in the field like, boy, I hope I have enough power, right? But you might not be, right? And the other side of this is even worse, right? What if you bring a battery that's just way too big for what you're planning on doing? What if you're bringing like a 50 amp hour battery and you're not even touching it, right? Because you're doing QRP, or you mostly have like a 20 watt radio, like a G90 or something, right? Like a Shegu G90. So having a huge battery is an opposite of bad. And why is it opposite bad? Well, because you could be backpacking and thinking to yourself, oh, I need all this power because I'm going to be running all weekend. Turns out you might have good enough options in just having a couple smaller batteries that you rotate off of a relatively small solar panel than one big honker that you're dragging out into the field, particularly if you're backpacking, right? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But the link is in the description, and I want to walk through this. In fact, we're going to walk through this on a radio that I have not done this with yet. Right? So we're going to kind of test this out live, and I'm going to show you the process using some simple tools and whatnot to be able to make this work. But let's go ahead and start with duration in hours, right? So we're just going to go down this list. You will do this on your own, right? Of course you are. You're going to take the link in the description, and you are going to try this yourself, because that's the whole point about this. Well, how long do we want to actually use the radio, right? How long are we going to be sitting down using the radio? This could be different for a lot of you. Right? If I had Tech Prepper on here, he might tell me, well, I need that to be 24 hours straight, but I'm going to be sipping power, and I'm going to be using a mode like JSA call, and I'm only going to be using 5 watts, if that, right? And it's occasionally. And it's more about receiving than it is necessarily transmitting, unless I'm going to do some very specific transmissions. If you're talking about a POTA operator, Parks on the Air, well, they're going to be like, oh, I need to be fairly active with my battery for a solid 2 to 6 hours. Like if I'm going to sit down and try and crank, like I'm working on my kilo, I'm trying to get a ton of contacts, then I'm going to need a 6-hour battery. So let's keep POTA in mind for this. So we're going to say typical POTA operator, we're going to need about, 6 hours. Again, you call it. If you want to change this, you can. Let's say 6 hours. Now, if you're like me and not a CW Chad operator yet, maybe in the future, I'm going to change this to single sideband, right? Now, this is a really, really important part, is this duty operator or operator duty cycle, right? And what that's saying is the percent of time in transmit instead of receive. The reason why these calculators are so important is because it's going to help you derive receive calculation of power and transmit power, right? Really, really important to make sure that we account for that, okay? So 50% is a lot. 50% is like you're calling CQ and responding, and it's just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You're going to be transmitting, you're assuming a pile up for the entire time. That's kind of a lot, right? 50% is almost like a contester, right? And a really good contester, really good contest station. So you could almost say this is the percent of time you transmit instead of receive. So you could even drop this down to like 30%. I'm going to be transmitting 30% of the time. A lot of people do 40%, right? If you are doing FT8, that is going to be even more. And an important note here, this mode of duty cycle, if you have it on RTTY and digital, that is going to be basically full duty cycle when transmitting. You will be using more power than, say, using a mode like single sideband. CW is also going to be the same kind of thing. When you're transmitting, you're putting all that power down, versus single sideband, like my voice, has characteristic highs and lows that are going to change the power consumption of your radio. So we'll keep it simple. We can actually do this a couple of different times, and we can change it. Actually, we will probably do that. But let's start with single sideband. So I'm going to say 40%. I think that's probably reasonable. But now you're like, oh, radios receive current in amps, and radios transmit current in amps. Interesting. Okay, so what that is going to be, and let's go over this so you can see. Current draw while receiving, measure or check receiver manual, right? So it's saying go look at the stated information that's on your radio, and oftentimes that will be in the ad material, the manual, the website for the radio will tell you what the receive current draw is in amps versus the transmit current draw. Now, the transmit current draw, if it's a 100-watt radio, is going to be the current draw at 100 watts output. And you can see that here, transmit. Current while transmitting, measure or track transmitting manual. So I am going to do this with you all, but we're going to test it with a tool that allows you to test this on your own. Matt, K7YEJ says, I wish it could be more. You and Leia do. Oh, thank you, bud. Cheers to you. Thank you for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. Leia and I both appreciate that, and we hope you listen to the podcast, because really that's the only thing she does to help me out. I'm just kidding. She's the world to me. And this is only possible because of Leia. All right. So how are we going to do this? Well, let me show you. Here we go. Uh-oh, did my thing die? Oh, no, so I got my FARS Meter 2000. This is a very important device. Not all of you can get these. This came from Not a Rubicon. Yep, that Not a Rubicon. And I have a power meter as well. So this power meter is connected to a power supply, and it is also connected to this radio, which is a Yaesu 857. Okay? Now, I'm going to turn this radio on, and it should give us our first number. The first number is the draw at 0.42 amps. And let me make sure I am in the right mode. I am. 0.42 amp draw. Okay? So this gets plugged in to our calculator. Let's do that now. .24 amps. Now, I have, because when I do Parks on the Air with this radio, this is often the radio I take, I don't actually like to run 100 watts with this. I run like about 70 watts. In fact, that's what this is set to right now. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to double check that I'm putting out about 70 watts. I am going to change the mode to AM on this because I'm actually going to be a little bit harder on myself. I'll explain why. Let's go ahead and key up. For a fact, them radio waves is harmful. Yeah. The FARS meter isn't working here. What's going on? I know for a fact them radio waves is harmful. What's going on with our FARS meter? Yeah. Yeah. You gotta love these newfangled devices. Well, let's just take this number. It's saying 7.19, although I was hoping to see the power output so we could verify it, but we're going to have to save that for another video, or maybe the after chat. 7.17. And yes, I'm transmitting into a dummy load. Very important. I find this funny that while I was messing around with that, I got a super chat from Ahmed Ishmael saying, your live stream is not a fail. It just failed. The device failed. Ooh, so funny. Oh, that's very nice. KE0VIM Travel and Ham says, all match, Matt. Oh, thank you so much. That's super cool. Well, let's assume that the power meter worked. We can just pretend it worked. Okay, for our sake. And it was 7.14 or something like that amps for about 70 amps output, which seems a little low, but whatever. We'll just assume that it's correct in this case. Again, you will do this on your own. You'll plug in your own radio, okay? So what is that telling us? Well, it says the average current consumed is going to be 0.792. The amp hour capacity needed is 4.752. And then the reserve amp hour. So this is like if you want a little bit of space, assuming that you're not going to like blow blow through everything. You want a little residual in case you want to go over that stated 6 hours, right? Then you have 9.5. So call it a 10 amp hour battery is kind of what it's advertising. So here is Dane Gier says, thank you for reading my letter. It means a lot. Video coming tomorrow, I promise. Oh, right on, man. Cool. Well, thank you for listening to the podcast. Appreciate that. And I'm glad we got to your letter. And I'm pretty sure, I want to reiterate, it was not your handwriting. It's just my ability to read cursive and also talk effectively while doing the podcast. Leia's a lot better at that. That's why she jumped in about halfway through because I was not doing great. Yeah, I'm going to have to talk to Randy about his FARS meter and get it fixed. He actually uses that a lot, so I don't know what I'm doing wrong. You know what? For everybody that wants to know more about the FARS meter, join me on the after chat, and we can learn more about it together. All right, enter here. So we can leave that out for right now. But all right, so now we got a lot of the information we need, and if you want to use a company's website, we can pull that up too. And we can do the calculations with the company's website. For right now, let's just leave it at this. In fact, we may do that with the 891. We probably will, because that's a POTA radio too. Let's change this, though, to digital, right? So what is that? Oh, look what just changed. I changed that to digital mode. Look what happened down here. Your amp hour capacity needed went to 18 for 6 hours of operation. Pretty serious. Right? That's a lot more. Well, why? What changed? Mode of operation. Single sideband being voice. Less taxing on the battery. Less draw. Flip it over to something that's full duty cycle where you transmit for 15 seconds, receive for 15 seconds, transmit 15 seconds, receive, even though 40%'s probably a little on the high side. 18 sounds about reasonable. So now what are you looking at? About a 20 amp hour battery, 24 amp hour battery, that whole thing. Speaking of that, let's see if we can find the Yaesu FT891 current draw. So 100 watts on the 891 will pull 23 amps. Let's go back to our calculator. What does that say? Oh boy. So we're going to say 21 amps. Oh, shoot. What just happened there? Right? So if you lower the power output, right, 100 watts on FT8, it's probably a lot. You may not need that for Parks on the Air. But you get the idea, right? Okay. So this is the cornerstone of your kit, right? At some point you're going to have to consider, the receive is a lot too. That's also a good point. Let's go back and check that. Oh, it's a radio reference form. So okay, we're not 100%. Oh, that's funny. My Yaesu 857 pulls 20 amps 100 watts and only 10.9 at 50. So that's relative to my 857 that I have. And let's see. Yaesu has it wrong. Oh, here's some hot QRZ beef. Oh. It's OH8STN. He's usually not beefing. But anyway, not the point. Doesn't matter. We can do this on the after chat. Regardless, put both the receive and the transmit in there so you can do the math on it. All right, so this is the cornerstone of your system. You're like, all right, I want 6 hours of battery. I'm only going to do FT8. Well, shoot, now I need potentially a 50 amp hour battery. Well, do you really? Maybe not. And that's where we're going to get into this next part, okay? So the next one, and this is kind of a note, by the way, I'll mention, Bioenno. Let's look at the cost really quick. So if we go to batteries, 12-volt batteries, let's see, 9 amp hour, $100, right? That was our first shot at looking at a battery. 9 amp hour, $100. There's your Bioenno, right? And our good friend, Dennis, 8060 amp. 5 amp hour battery, right? So you would need 2 of these hypothetically, or you do QRP, you'd run lower, whatever it may be. Still, you're going to pay a decent chunk of money for a good battery. Both companies, very good batteries, right? But we did the math, so now we know about how many. Now we know about how many amp hours you're going to expect in a given situation, right? So we will sally forth. Is this it? Yeah. So now we've thought to ourselves, okay, here's what our radio requires for power output. And we've kind of spec'd out a battery. That's assuming 100% you're just going to have a fully charged battery. You're going to deplete that battery in your operation. Realistically, though, depending on where you live, now this is where the whole rest of this conversation comes in with the 30 minutes that we have left to talk about it, right? So we've got other options to add. We could scale back the battery some and add something like solar or wind, or we could just have a generator to run the whole thing, right? This could also be an off-grid cabin or a home where something like wind makes a little bit more sense. A generator makes a little bit more sense as a permanent setup, or it could be field day, for instance, right? So all these options have their place. Sometimes they're not needed. But solar, though, is generally one of the options that amateur radio operators lean to because they're pretty effective. Now, I did find this really cool blog that, states a lot of this stuff better than I'm going to. And oftentimes I treat patron picks as kind of a way for me to kind of go in and research a little bit of stuff so I can pass the information on to you all. This being one of those cases where I kind of know a decent amount of solar and batteries, but things like wind were kind of new to me. We're going to talk about that. And some of this is kind of in the weeds a little bit because this is almost a backup to what you may do at like your home QTH. If you're just portable, right, then the only thing you really need to do is spec a battery and then potentially spec a solar system to go along with it, right? Does that make sense? Okay, hopefully. So this breaks down some of the additional math that you may want to play around with, but you're looking at like, they're trying to, this guy's trying to, never mind, that's an ad. But it's kind of talking about like, okay, how many, watt hours per day do you need, right? Per day, 100 times 8, 100 watt hours, right? You have 8 devices or whatever. But there are calculators for that as well, which we should have right here. So ignore all this other stuff, right? So it's saying number of solar panels, right? And it's, 80 to 100 watts. Number of batteries you could so I see what it did there. Now we want to change this. This is actually going to be for a home setup. Bad calculator. We're going to have to just do the math live here, it sounds like. So what we have to account for is a loss of about 50%, depending on where you live, 50 to 10%. And that's going to be based off of the location of where you are. Some areas are going to have more sun. Obviously, this individual is from Honolulu, which is going to have less of a loss associated with solar intensity, panel loss, and then just wiring. But you can roughly count for 50% loss, right, to be conservative when you're talking about a solar panel. Desiree Souza, thanks so much for your tech videos. Oh, very good. Thank you for the super chat. I am now known as KQ4KUO, studying hard for general. Couldn't have done it without your help. Oh, thank you, Desiree. I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. And by the way, thanks everybody. You guys obviously don't have to do the super chats, but super appreciated. I love the comments that are going on as the live stream is going on. People have all these intricate, detailed conversations, and Flex Radio has entered the chat in the form of Ham Radio 2.0. All right, so we need to break down. Let's see. All right, so divide your total watt hours needed, right? Each 6. Okay, so 6 is how many hours per day. So 6. We think we need 800 watt hours in this example. We don't, because we are going to use our calculator. Let's go back here. So this is amp hours. We need to convert that into, or we can use, yeah, we can just use, hold on. This is no. Don't remember how to do it, so we're going to go amp hour to watt hour. I forget the math, so let's just look it up. So we're saying we're going to need, let's go back to single sideband. So we're going to need 12 amp hours at 12 volts. 144. Okay. So go back to our discussion here. Nope, not that one. This one. So we need 133 watt hours to be able to get us fully recharged on that battery if we had a 12 amp hour battery. We don't actually need that though, because again, we're going to deplete this a little bit slower, but let me continue. So go back to our thing here. Now we're still going after everything. Yeah, where's Dawn with the on comment? So, how does that all factor in? Well, let me flip over to our. Let me go back here so you guys can see the rest of this guy. So basically, off of our calculations, we're using this as an example, but we just did the math to basically say, hey, look, let's take our amp hour battery, so 12 amp hours, and to replace it, we need 130-ish, right? What was our converter? 144 watt hours is to what that converts to. 12 volts at 12 amp hours converts to 144 watt hours. So do we need a 144? Close the door. My kid's coming in here now. So we don't need that size of a solar panel, but we need to have some amount to be able to cover what we're losing or to offset what we're charging or pulling off of the charge for the radio, right? So there you go. Okay, so that gives us the 800 by 6. That's just their example. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, this is kind of what it looks like in the sense of an actual set of panels. So doing the math there, if we had a 120 watt panel, or if you look at the one below that, that's a 150 watt panel, that would keep our battery charged up while we also pulled off of that battery or pulled off the charge controller. And you'd have, at the end of the day, you'd have no loss out of your battery. You would be able to float and sustain your entire operation for the entire weekend or whatever there was sun. If you were operating when there was no sun, you'd be depleting your battery, right? Looking at the panel at the top, that is a 120 watt panel from PowerFilm Solar. That is a flexible panel versus the one below it. That is the 150 watt panel from Gigaparts, and that is a foldable, but the panel elements are rigid panels. So that's why you need less of the rigid panels to get you to 150 versus the flexible panels that get you 120. Hey, Ham Fun with KO4PDI. What's up, man? It's good to see you in Huntsville. Thank you for the super chat. Now, for you QRP guys, the two that I used are on the left. That is a 25 watt Bioenno panel. That is one of those semi-rigid elements, yet the portions of the panel are foldable. And then next to that is the 20 watt PowerFilm solar panel. Okay? Hopefully that all makes sense. And I am seeing the chat. So if you post your questions like at Ham Radio Crash Course or question, put it somewhere in there as we go through this. Go ahead, because I know I'm bombarding you with a lot of information, and we're going to dip into some other stuff too that might be a little bit wild, right? Thank you, Sean. Appreciate it. Yeah, so the way to look at this is often think of like a sinking ship, right? How do I put myself on here? Can I? Hey, there I am. So let's think of this like a sinking ship. You are on a ship, the USS Ham Radio, and you have a bilge pump, right? And you can pump X amount of water out an hour. Or you could, to the point that like you have to pump so much to the point that you keep it afloat. If you stop, you'll start to lose, right? You'll start to lose the battle. It's kind of the same thing with your batteries. You could just deplete your battery and then you're done, and then you're all set. You're off grid, and then you're no longer off grid because you're out of power. You're done with that whole thing. So with that, you just would have to add a solar panel to kind of keep you buoyant, keep you going if you catch the drift. You could continue to lose power over time against your battery, but that's often okay if you're only really going to be operating for a weekend. A lot of good questions. Oop. I'm refilling my beer, and this can got a little bit energetic on me. I get crowlers from the local brewery. A crowler is where they just take their pulls and they just throw beer in it, and then they put the cap on for you. But oftentimes if it gets crowlered, it's under a decent amount of pressure, and then you open it, kind of like explodes a little bit. And that's what just happened to my pants. Who makes the 150? You can get it at Gigaparts. So going back here, it's their Explorer line. Link is in the description. And again, you don't have to buy it from Gigaparts, but if you do, you get 10% off with Josh there. It's their Explorer. They got a 300 watt and a 150 watt. $300 though. So actually, this is a really good question because this is an important thing to understand. Now, batteries are one thing. Batteries can be very expensive, right? Good batteries, anyway. There's a lot of kind of crap batteries. By the way, you can look at Jason, Ham Radio 2.0. You can look at Mike, KMRD. You can look at Smokin' Ape. A number of those channels do battery reviews where they actually have devices to test like how good a battery is. Go take a look at some of the batteries that are out there on Amazon. I only really ever recommend Bioenno and, of course, 86DM because those are high-quality batteries. Now, solar panels, that's when things get really wild. PowerFilm Solar and the Explorer line. The Explorer line is less expensive, but PowerFilm Solar is quite expensive. Now, for some of you, the 60 watt may be enough, right? Because you're maybe just doing single sideband. You're not going to be doing heavy digital. You may only have like a 9 amp hour battery or 12 amp hour battery, but there you go. Now, something that is important to mention before we leave here is going back to battery discussion. I know we hit upon, yeah, here we go. It is also important to understand that while the radio needs a certain amount of amps that it's going to draw, if you don't feed it that, you will undercurrent the radio. It likely won't damage the newer radios, but you won't get the power output you need. So if you cram a smaller battery, like a 5 amp hour, 6 amp hour battery, even a 9 amp hour in some cases on a radio, you might start out okay getting a 100 watt output, but then it'll start to like go down on you. Is that the right term? No, it won't do that. It will start to lose power on you, or it'll start to go off and on. It'll fluctuate. So that is also a consideration. You may need nothing smaller than a 12 amp hour if your heart is completely set on a 100 watt output radio, for instance. Let's see. There was a super chat, as KK6OTD would say, more power. To a point, right? So yes, to a point, you don't necessarily want the biggest battery if you're going to be backpacking, as I started out saying. It's oftentimes good to just go with a smaller battery that you can kind of keep topped off with a solar panel. That's always been my point of view. And then, when it's dead at night, it's dead, and you wake up in the morning, you put it on the charger, and then you go, back in your sleeping bag and chill out for a little while, and then you can get started, right? That kind of thing. I'm always in that camp. I'd rather pack lighter than heavier, and if that means I can't be constantly transmitting in the evening, that's not that big a deal. I'll just go to bed. All right. So, thoughts on the BioNO 40-watt solar panel recharging? Thoughts on BioNO 40-watt solar panel for recharging a 12 amp hour or 15 amp hour battery for the Yaesu 891? Well, again, this is a great question. Mode of operation. What's your mode of operation? Let's assume single sideband, right? So going back to our calculator, this is a bit of a detour we're taking here, but it's a good detour. This is, what'd you say, 15 amp hour? No. Ha! Look at the pop-up. The battery amp hour capacity is less than you desire. You may need to adjust your operating plans, use additional batteries, or use a different battery. That was the top warning there. How much is used? The shallower, the longer the battery will last. Yeah, so if you do this, what's it going to do? Yeah, it freaks out. What if it's 1? Oh my god, the battery can't be that. Is that right? Does that freak out when you do that? Yeah, so it's just... What does that do? There you go. Yeah, so there you go. Yeah, so there. Thank you, Dennis, for that. 40-watt panel gives about 25 to 30 watts in actuality. Right, because we talked about that a little bit earlier from that blog and from our calculator we looked at. You can kind of expect 50%. I'm very conservative. I aim for 50% efficiency. So if you say it's 40, you're really getting 20. If it's 20, you're really getting 10. If it's 100, you're getting 50. It depends on where you live, though, how you have it oriented. If it's just a sheet that you throw on the ground, again, all of this kind of setup, you need really good sun exposure to do this. And you're only going to be, depending on the year, too, right? Sun comes in at different angles sometimes. That's going to mess with the efficiency completely here. So keep that in mind. You're not going to get the true reading here. You're going to get a lesser reading, almost always. Excuse me. So let's go back. So what's it going to take to get that back up? Well, 20-watt panel, basically. You're going to get 20 watts into your 12 amp hour battery while you're actively depleting it with your 891. You're going to need about, let's move this down a little bit because this is a little too high. Yeah. So this website's saying that if you want to run for 6 hours of single sideband, you need probably a 12 amp hour battery, right? Now, throwing that panel on top of it just means you're going to operate longer. You're going to be able to operate longer than 6 hours, right? So if you, by the way, a 12 amp hour battery is completely, well, should be 12, sorry. Yeah. So a 12 amp hour battery will get you 6.3 amp hours roughly duration for running. And throwing the solar panel on it will just kind of maybe keep things topped off, but you'll generally be losing the battle, if you will. The boat will be sinking, if you use my boat analogy. There's Adam. Adam's probably got some great insight on this. This is probably one of those ones where it'd be really good to do this again with Adam. Yeah. So I guess that's the point here, right? Is I want everybody to the calculator is linked in the description, and I want you all to feel empowered to do this on your own. And this is really fun because you can play with different variables here, right? And once you get, accustomed to doing this, all of a sudden you go, okay. So I can go with half the size, or let's call it a 9 amp hour battery. A 9 amp hour battery would let me transmit hypothetically at full power output of my 891. But I don't think I'm going to do that all the time. I think I'm going to run it like 50% power output. And that's going to be good enough for me. Somebody literally just knocked on the door. So I'm hoping my wife has it. Right? And that's what we're kind of aiming for here, is to you do what is best for you. With that said, I do want to remind everybody that, solar panels can be expensive. Just the 60-watt panel here is $200. But if you go back to the previous one, 150 watts is $335. That is no joke. What is going on? There's literally... Somebody with a camo baseball hat just left something. Hopefully that was not me, not something for me. Was it really? That was me knocking on your front door. I hope not. That would be weird. Don't do that. All right. So let's move on. We're going to talk briefly about some wind power stuff. Where's my next one? Yeah. So I'm going to mention this really quick because this is kind of I don't want to say deep dive, but an interesting little piece of information or factoid. Three-phase power generation is something that is likely a better option. I know you're probably like, what? How did you just go from solar panels to now talking about three-phase power? So there are a couple of different types of wind turbines, as they're called, on the market. There are straight DC 12-volt systems, and then there are like three-phase AC. The three-phase AC, for a lot of folks, is probably going to be a little bit easier to use because you can have longer runs of smaller diameter wire, and then you just use a bridge rectifier to get them back into DC, right? So that's what this looks like, is you have some kind of three-phase rectifier. The rectifier is what gives you back DC, and that's where your battery bank is, along with some fuse lines up and all that. Now, I'm not going to recommend any particular type of windmill, but there is a couple of websites online. I think I linked in the video description, so you can go check that out. One of them is like Ham Off Grid or something along those lines. The cool thing about this is not me, because I don't have a lot of wind, so I'm not really the right person to look this up. You probably should go Google all this stuff, but I thought I would mention it because it's actually a really cool story. You could do all of this with like a car alternator. A car alternator is like a three-phase, is an AC three-phase generator. You could build a lot of this on your own, but there exists equipment that you can get online that'll do this. Some of it is via Timo and whatnot, so consider that as well. Timo, I saw Wish, I saw some other ones on Amazon, but a lot of those were direct to DC. What just happened?
You got a ham radio delivery to our front door.
Somebody literally just said that they were dropping something off at the front door. Yeah. Okay. All right, I will talk to you in the... Wait, did I really order something? Did I... Did that just happen live? Did that really just happen live? Oh, no way. Yes, I know what that is. Maybe give me a heads up if you're gonna do that. Don't just show up in a live stream. You're gonna piss Leia off. Leia's mad. Leia's mad now. Leia is mad now. You guys can't do that. No, Grayman Poet, it was not you, but I know who it was. I don't think you did that on purpose, but don't do that. Yeah, he literally knocked on the door while she was... Leia's not happy. Things to happen on a live stream I don't want to happen. That is one of them. That has totally derailed my brain. Sorry about that, guys. All right, let's move on. Okay, what's next? Yeah, I'm not going to try and pretend like I understand the whole wind turbine thing, but there are a number of different websites. Actually, OH8STN, he has a vertical wind turbine. I fell in love with what he's got, but I don't have wind, so go check out his stuff. But if you do, if you go take a look at just ham radio wind turbine, then you'll find a number of links out there. Thing to remember, though, is three-phase. If you can remember three-phase, that might help save your wallet and likely make the whole installation a little bit easier. Yeah, go take a look. He has a vertical turbine, which he seems to really like. All right, and then lastly, before we get to questions here, I saw this and I started laughing because I didn't realize DX Engineering had generators, but they have inverters. So let's talk briefly about inverters. So if you Honda 2000, I have a Yamaha 2000. Those are inverter generators. A traditional generator, traditional, is called a stator, which cranks up right to a specific idle. It stays at idle and it just puts out a specific amount of power. An inverter is going to ramp up power commensurate to the draw upon the system. You generally will get a higher like initial cranking output or initial start output. So if it's listed as like 2000, you're not going to get that. You're going to get something more like 18 to 1600 watt output. But inverters are tricky. I can't comment on this DX Engineering one, but I saw it and I thought I would mention it because it's a ham radio brand. I have used my Yamaha in the field, Yamaha 2000, and have not got RFI. At the same time, I've also seen many a hams use the Honda 2000s and have not had much problem. With all of that said, you basically have to move the whole thing ideally away from your shack or operating area and use some bit of wire to get that into the shack or into wherever you're operating. This would be where I would make my recommendation for Palomar Engineer. So again, HRCC 73, not affiliated with me at all, but any of their kits, you get 10% off if you use HRCC 73. You need usually something, even if it's an inverter, to get common mode current off of the line, usually before the wire enters the shack. So if you're running like an extension cord, try and run something like that through there. I would say, let's see, grounding a generator is usually a good idea. So if you have a ground rod, if you're truly running portable, a ground rod is going to be not a bad idea in a lot of cases. In fact, if you are a field day station, like if you're going to be running field day and you're going to have a lot of different radios up and running, grounding out that generator is probably a good idea. And it should be, again, a ground rod where everything is brought together. Your tower setups, your radio setups, all of that. Bring it all together where that generator is or at the base of some kind of antenna and whatnot. And then have everything moved away from that. So, is that just a toroid? Yes. There is plans in the ARRL handbook on basically a two plugs that are suspended between a toroid where you have wound a kind of a toroid, a coil, basically that will help remove current or common mode current from the wires, and that is a fun project. You might want to do that with a ham club. God, everything is just blowing up in my house right now. Whoa. Dennis said, oh, wow, I never knew about this toroid. Really? I can't imagine Dennis doesn't know things. I'm always shocked when somebody says, like, I didn't know about this. So hopefully that helped. Good. Sorry, I'm still a little bit taken aback. Like, somebody showing up at the house. That's a little weird. Whether you have the ability to do that or not, please don't do that again. Don't do that. I don't know what my wife is going to say after I end the live stream. This could be my last live stream. We'll see. See if I'm back for the after chat. Come back for the after chat, guys. See if I'm here. Let's see. I've used a Surge X SA82 AC filter to remove gas generator EMI completely, but it's a price unit. Oh, see, okay, that's actually a good piece of advice. Now, a lot of this stuff gets really expensive. That's another important part of all this. So keep that in mind. All right, what else did I need to hit? I think we got the 891. We got that as well. Got the generators. Got that. Yeah, so I think it's time for your questions. Hopefully we instilled upon you. Oh, one last thing. Charge controllers. I did skip on this. And this is way out of alignment then. I should have hit this earlier. So what goes between your battery and your solar panel is technically a charge controller, right? Genasun makes some of the better ones. They are MPPT, which means they're lower noise. There are other brands out there. In fact, let me go back to the live stream or the overhead. This is the BioNO, which has been outside. That's why it's a little dusty. That's the Buddy Pool Power Mini 1st Gen. There are a number of charge controllers that are on the market, and what does a charge controller do, really? Like, what's its job? So what a charge controller's job is that it takes the incoming power from the solar panel and feeds it into a battery or a load, or multiple batteries, multiple loads, however you have it configured. Its main job is to not backload that power onto the solar panel. If you connected a battery to a solar panel just directly and then put the panel in shade, the battery will offload into the panel and heat up the elements of that solar panel, right? So a charge controller's job is to really make sure that the power is going in one direction, charging your battery. That's one of the major effects. Let's see. How much have you used the power film? So I've used a Lightsaber Max. I use that for QRP. I love this. By the way, I should also mention, I didn't get an opportunity to do that because this hour kind of flew by in the whole middle thing that happened there. I use this 20-watt one with my QRP radios, and it's like super lightweight. I like this. This is a really good go-to. I use the 120-watt one. So let's go back to the collage here. I use that 120-watt one when I leave it in my truck, and when I'm running radios like in my truck or when I was doing that amplifier video, I will always have that set up. And those little hooped lines are actually, they go around the mirrors on my Ford, and I'll align the truck in a way where I get good sun exposure, that whole thing. That's a really good panel for that. I gave away a 65-watt one, or a 60 watt at the last HRCC campout. I gave away a whole power film panel. So if you missed out on that, you missed out big time. And then the 150-watt Gigaparts, that one, the Explorer, that one is also a good POTA, like a car trunk portable solar panel. That's been a pretty good mainstay. And lastly, the Bioenno one, which I have here. The reason why I like this one here, it's a little heavy, but let me show you. So it's got a pocket on the back, and the pocket is actually big enough to store a Denko battery, a charge controller, and then all the little cables you need. And I've used this before, so you just load up this mesh pocket and close it up. And that's usually enough panel to get me through a day with a 6 amp hour battery and a G90, or easily QRP. QRP is not even a problem. Yeah. Yes, Julian had, and again, I'm not trying to speak on behalf of you, Julian, if you watch this, because I know sometimes you do. Nothing but love for you, man. Yes, Julian has lots of videos on PowerFilm Solar. I wonder why mentioning Denko needs a special voice. I don't know, because of maybe the amazing sticker. Oh, look at this, guys. Look at this. The amazing battery, the Denko. I did go with the thin pack, the rounded high-speed, low-drag edges on the Denko battery. Let's see. Maybe touch on TSA battery limits for the... Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Good point. So TSA is kind of a bit of a mess. The general, okay, here's my general safe recommendation is 2 9 amp hour batteries. I believe, and somebody correct me in the chat, I think you can get away with two 9 amp hour batteries for TSA. You can sometimes do a 12 amp hour battery, but it depends on who you're dealing with at the TSA. Chuck had his Denko swabbed at Nashville. Is 12 amp hour in one battery the max? What's the actual max like that you can have on your person? Yeah, there you go. It's by the watt hour, so 100 watt hour max. So if we go back to, let me go back here. Calculate 100 watt hour, and you do 10. What is that? Oh, so 9. So you can get 9, number 9. So even at 9, you're. I remember Zach and Jason both went back and forth on this exact conversation at Huntsville. I remember this. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. So let's see. I would just try to wing it. I'd try to take 2 9s. That's what I normally do. I'm always packing 2 9s. 2 6s, I guess, is what I meant. Take 2 6s. There you go. Or 1 9. 1 9 will get you. Okay, even closer. 12. Wait, 12. You're probably good at 12, right? Yeah. Take a 12 amp hour. Go nuts. It sounds like so. Here's okay. Go back to the overhead. We're about out of time here, but I will take batteries like this. This is generally what I take. But I'm also, when I travel by air, I'm usually not taking a 100-watt radio. I'm taking QRP. I guess I could start packing my 857 here, but I don't know. I always feel like that's too much radio when I'm traveling. I always want some kind of lightweight, high-speed load drag setup. So, yeah. This is a 6 amp hour. Or is it 5? 5.5 amp hour. There you go. All right. Well, that's probably going to do it, I think. I went to a ham fest today, the TRW Swap Meet Ham Fest, and I got a thing that we will be playing around with on the after chat. So, oh yeah. So sorry, Nick. I'm not saying oh yeah because I'm exhausted, but We4DX Pack Beach Adventure is coming up. I need I need to do that in the beginning of the show. I can mention it. I'll mention it on the next live stream. Let's talk again. But I was so focused on me potentially going to this, I forgot that you wanted me to mention it at the beginning of the show. I'll give you multiple shout outs. No problem, buddy. We'll get that. We'll get that taken care of. When we do it, though, and this is some sausage making. Don't worry. We4DX, we've got a hot adventure coming up. If you go to We4DX, Google that. There is a Pacific Beach. It's basically a week-long adventure, ham radio adventure. Lots of POTA. Some prime rib in there too, very nice. That you can go on. So go ahead and Google We4DX. Or I guess I could just pull it up. What the hell? It's at the end of the show. Should have done this right at the beginning. Sorry about that. I was so focused on doing the, getting the Hellfest. I had 2 things I got to hit. So by the way, that was Mount Pacifico right there. That was that picture. All right, let's go back to the right when you go to We4DX. Go Ham Radio Adventures, hamradioadventures.com. Go to Adventures, upcoming adventures, Pacific Beach 2023. Here you go. It is October 11th through the 16th, Pack Beach. It's actually, I don't want to say all expenses paid, but there's a lot going on there. It's more than just POTA. It's going to be Pico balloons, among other things, antenna building workshop, fox hunting, hands-on amateur satellites, and pizza. And also, I believe there is some prime rib as well. So go check that out. Special voice for that, too. That's how you know it's legitimate. I'll drop the link. I hope you guys consider joining us on the after chat because we are going to take a look at this like ancient Motorola service monitor that I bought today at a show. I do have a Tiny SA, which we're probably going to tap into that as well. I have the Tiny SA Ultra. I may tap into that. I haven't decided. This thing is such a weird, wild thing, so we're going to have fun with that. Hey, Vern! Vern did well, I don't know if your video's live yet, but cheers to you, buddy. That was a great video, and hopefully everybody enjoys it. Oh, no, yeah, you did. You totally went live. All right. Thank you, Vern. Appreciate the super chat. All right, we're running long here, so I got to wrap things up so I can get ready for the after chat and then go talk my wife off of telling me that I can't live stream anymore. So don't do that again, okay, guys? Thanks. Appreciate it. This was the Patron Picks episode. Thank you to the Patreon supporters. You guys really allow me to do stupid things like buy a bunch of batteries and buy different solar panels and other fun stuff to be able to do videos like this and have a bit of my my feedback. So, oh wow, Jody, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate that, very very much appreciated. I don't know what she's gonna say, man. When I wrap this up right now, she's not gonna be happy. So yeah, thank you, Jody. Appreciate that. If you're watching this now, honey, you know where we keep the guns, okay? You can open the door and you can be strapped. You understand, babe? You're good. You can do that. I respect it. There we go. Where's Jody's? There it is. Door cam fund. I got a door cam. I just didn't need it. I didn't know that I had to live stream the door cam. Don't worry, it will be a topic on next week's podcast. The cat will definitely take care of anybody that has an issue. I do. Boy, howdy, do I remember that. I do indeed remember that, Dennis. That was a time. The problem with that is it just took so long. It took such a huge amount of time that like took everything. I had to end it early to get all of it, So anyway, all right, everybody. Hope you join us on the after chat. I'm gonna head out, but please enjoy the memes. Thank you very much.